Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Deku joined the King of Iron Fist tournament to stop Kazuya? Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The air tasted like ash and ozone. That was the first thing Izuku Midoriya noticed. It wasn't the metallic tang of blood that had permeated Yaku's city, nor was it the thick, suffocating dust of the crumbling hospital. This air was dry, ancient, and scorched. Moments ago, or what felt like moments ago, he had been suspended in the gray sky of Japan, the vestiges of one for all screaming in the back of his mind. He remembered the feeling of Tamura Shigaraki's decay spreading through the air, the terrifying singularity of a quirk that had grown too large for its vessel. There had been a clash, a collision of ideologies and raw power. Shigaraki's hand had reached out, distorted by a dimensional warping quirk he must have stolen from a Heian Nomu, and Izuku had moved to intercept. He had pushed one for all to 45%. He had prepared a Wyoming smash, and then, the world had shattered. Not like glass, but like a television screen losing its signal. The colors inverted, the sound of the wind turned into a deafening digital screech, and the gravity that tethered him to the earth simply vanished. Now, Izuku opened his eyes. He was lying face down in sand. Not the soft sand of Takoba Municipal Beach, but coarse, gritty gravel that dug into the exposed skin of his arms. The heat was oppressive, a physical weight pressing down on his back. Ugh! Izuku groaned, pushing himself up. His body ached, a deep, resonating throb in his bones that usually only came after using 100% of his power. But he hadn't used 100%. He blinked, his vision swimming. The green lightning that usually danced around his body was gone, dormant beneath his skin. He scrambled to his feet, instinctively reaching for the radio on his cowl. Endeavor? Best Jeanist? Can anyone hear me? Static. Not the static of a jammed signal, but the empty, hollow hiss of a frequency that didn't exist. Izuku looked around, and his blood ran cold. He was not in Jaka. He wasn't even in Japan. He stood in the middle of a ruined thoroughfare in what looked like a Middle Eastern metropolis. But it was a city that had been chewed up and spat out by war. Skyscrapers of glass and steel twisted toward the sky like broken fingers. The streets were littered with the husks of tanks and armored personnel carriers, their metal twisted by forces far greater than conventional explosives. But it was the sky that terrified him. It was a clear, piercing blue, indifferent to the destruction below. There were no news helicopters. No heroes gliding through the air, just the distant, rhythmic thumping of artillery and the low hum of something mechanical approaching. Danger sense flared. It wasn't the sharp, stabbing pain that Shigaraki induced. This was a dull, buzzing vibration at the base of his skull. Malice. Cold, programmed malice. Help! Someone, please! The cry was faint, echoing off the concrete walls of a bombed-out bazaar to his left. Izuku didn't think. His body moved before his mind could process the geography. Green sparks flickered to life around his limbs, the familiar warmth of one for all flooding his veins. Full cowling, 30%. He kicked off the ground, the asphalt shattering beneath his iron soles. He blurred through the ruined streets, navigating the debris with the practiced fluidity of his shoot style. He rounded a corner and skidded to a halt, his eyes widening. In the center of a dusty plaza, a group of civilians, maybe 20 of them, men, women, and children, were huddled against the remains of a fountain. They were covered in dust, clutching ragged bundles of belongings. Blocking their escape was a wall of muscle and metal. They were massive. At least 7 feet tall, with skin the color of gunmetal and ridiculous, exaggerated proportions. Their upper bodies were V-shaped wedges of synthetic muscle, topped with flat, buzz-cut heads and glowing red visors. They didn't look like support items. They didn't look like Nomu. They looked like weapons. There were 5 of them. They moved with a terrifying, synchronized uniformity. The lead unit raised a massive arm, the hydraulics hissing loudly. The forearm detached slightly at the wrist, and a turbine within the limb began to spin, glowing with orange heat. Target confirmed, the machine droned. Its voice was a synthesized bass that vibrated in Izuku's chest. Eliminate hostile sympathizers. No! A woman screamed, shielding a child. The machine drew its fist back. Smash! Izuku didn't just step in. He exploded into the space between the machine and the civilians. He twisted his body in midair, channeling the kinetic energy from his sprint into his right leg. St. Louis. Smash! The kick connected with the side of the machine's head. There was a thunderous clang, like a church bell being struck by a freight train. The force of the impact sent a shockwave through the plaza, kicking up a cloud of dust. Izuku landed in a crouch, sliding backward a few feet, his boots carving grooves into the stone. He looked up, expecting the machine to be dismantled. His eyes narrowed. The robot had stumbled. Its head was dented deeply, the metal crumped inward, and its red visor was flickering. But it hadn't fallen. It stabilized itself with a heavy stomp that cracked the pavement, slowly turning its head back toward Izuku. Threat detected, it droned. Re-evaluating combat parameters. It's tough, Izuku analyzed instantly, his mind shifting into combat mode. That kick would have shattered concrete. It would have knocked out a villain with a gigantification quirk, but this thing just absorbed the impact. The alloy is incredibly dense. The other 4 units turned in unison, abandoning the civilians to focus on the new variable. You're just a kid, one of the civilian men stammered, staring at Izuku's tattered green costume. Get back! Izuku shouted, not taking his eyes off the machines. Find cover. I'll draw their fire. Who are you? I'm a hero, Izuku said, the word feeling strange in this alien air. Now go! The machines didn't wait for introductions. 2 of them lunged forward, their movements deceptively fast for their bulk. Danger sense buzzed. Left and right. Izuku engaged Black Whip. 5 tendrils of dark energy shot out from his left hand, latching onto a streetlight pole hanging precariously from a ruined second story. He yanked, launching himself into the air just as the 2 machines punched the space he had occupied a millisecond before. The collision of their fists created a vacuum wave that blew the hats off the fleeing civilians. They're fast, Izuku muttered, flipping in the air. But they're linear. He needed to disable them without causing collateral damage. If they were robots, he didn't need to hold back as much as he did with humans. One for all, 45%. The green lightning intensified, arcing wildly around him. Izuku descended like a meteor. He aimed for the joints. The knees. He landed on the shoulder of the first unit, the one he had dented earlier. Before it could swat him away, he channeled power into his fist. Manchester smash. He brought his heel down in an axe kick directly onto the unit's neck joint. This time, the metal gave way. There was a sickening crunch of circuitry, and the robot's head collapsed into its chest cavity. Sparks showered the plaza as the massive machine went limp, crashing to its knees and then falling face first. 1 down. 4 to go. Bioweapon identified, one of the remaining units stated. Initiating extermination mode. The 4 units lined up. Their chests opened, revealing whirling Gatling mechanisms. Oh, you have to be kidding me, Izuku said. He grabbed the cape of his costume, Gran Torino's cape, and braced himself. 6th user's quirk, smokescreen. Purple smoke erupted from his body, expanding instantaneously to fill the plaza. It was thick, blinding, and impenetrable. The Gatling gun spun up, and the air was filled with the roar of high-caliber rounds shredding the environment. But they were firing blindly. Izuku moved through the smoke like a phantom. He relied entirely on danger sense to track the trajectories of the bullets and the positions of the enemies. Float. He lifted off the ground, hovering silently above the smoke. He could see the red glowing eyes of the robots scanning the fog, confused. I need to end this quickly. The noise will attract more. Izuku dive-bombed. He grabbed 2 of the units by their heads using Black Whip, using the momentum of his fall to slam them together. The impact crumpled their faceplates, fusing them in a mess of sparked wires. He landed on the ground, breathing hard. 2 left. They emerged from the smoke, abandoning their guns. They charged him, arms glowing with that orange heat again. Izuku prepared to counter, raising his fists. Suddenly, a streak of blue and white light tore through the plaza. It wasn't a quirk. It was electricity. But it was wild, jagged, and moved with the speed of a lightning strike. A figure blurred past Izuku. The figure moved with a precision that was terrifying to behold. The man. It was a man, ducked under the clumsy swing of the first robot. He moved inside the machine's guard, his fist glowing with crackling blue energy. Ha! The man struck the robot's midsection. It wasn't just a punch. It was a palm strike that seemed to carry the force of a thunderclap. The massive robot was lifted off its feet, launched backward as if hit by a cannonball, and smashed into the wall of a building, crumbling into a pile of scrap. The final robot turned to face the newcomer. The man spun, his armored coat flaring. He swept the robot's legs with a low kick that defied physics, knocking the multi-ton machine into the air. As it fell, the man performed a somersault kick, driving his heel into the robot's chest core. Boom! The machine exploded. Silence returned to the plaza, save for the crackle of burning debris and the heavy breathing of the civilians. Izuku stood frozen, his guard still up. He analyzed the newcomer instantly. Male. Late 20s. Distinctive spiky hair. Wearing sleek, tactical armor with a lion insignia. He doesn't have a mutation quirk. That electricity, it looked like my full cowling, but different. It was generated by movement by spirit? The man stood up straight, brushing dust off his shoulder. He turned to look at Izuku. His eyes were sharp, calculating, but not malicious. Behind him, an armored transport vehicle rumbled into the plaza, flanked by soldiers in gray uniforms. They raised their rifles, aiming directly at Izuku. "Hold fire!" the man commanded. His voice was authoritative, cutting through the tension. The soldiers lowered their weapons instantly. The man walked toward Izuku. He stopped 5 feet away, looking at the glowing green energy still radiating from the boy. "That's impressive tech," the man said, nodding at Izuku. "I haven't seen bioelectricity like that since a certain relative of mine." "You're not G Corporation." Izuku powered down, the lightning fading. He raised his hands non-threateningly. "I know. I don't know what G Corporation is. I'm a hero. From Japan." The man raised an eyebrow. "A hero? That's a word I haven't heard used seriously in a long time." He looked at the wreckage of the Jack 7 units. "You took out 3 Jack 7 solo. With your bare hands. You're either crazy or incredibly dangerous." "I was just protecting those people," Izuku said, gesturing to the civilians who were now being attended to by the soldiers. "They were going to kill them." The man's expression softened. He sighed, looking tired. "Yeah. That's what Kazuya does. Peace through tyranny." He extended a hand. "I'm Lars. Lars Alexanderson. Leader of the Yggdrasil rebel army." Izuku hesitated, then took the hand. It was calloused and strong. "Izuku Midoriya. Hero name Deku." "Deku?" Lars repeated, a hint of amusement in his voice. "Strange name. Listen, Deku. You look like you fell out of the sky. And in this war zone, staying in the open is a death sentence. G-Corp satellites are sweeping this sector. If they saw that light show of yours, a kill squad is already en route." "War zone?" Izuku asked, the reality sinking in. "Where exactly am I?" Lars looked at him grimly. "You're in the ruins of the Middle East. One of the many battlegrounds between the Mishima Zaibatsu and G-Corporation. The world is on fire, kid, and if you're not with G-Corp, you're a target." Izuku felt a pit form in his stomach. A global war? 2 massive organizations? It sounded like the Paranormal Liberation Front, but on a scale he couldn't comprehend. I need to get home," Izuku whispered. "My friends, the villains. Villains are everywhere," Lars said, turning back to his transport. "But right now, survival comes first. Come with us. We have a base nearby. We can get you food, water, and maybe explain why the world has gone to hell." Izuku looked at the civilians. The soldiers were loading them into a transport truck, giving them water and blankets. These rebels were saving people. "Go where you're needed." All Might's voice echoed in his head. Izuku nodded. "Okay. I'll come." The ride to the Yggdrasil base was tense. Izuku sat in the back of the armored personnel carrier, APC, squeezed between crates of ammunition and a very quiet, very large soldier who kept eyeing Izuku's torn costume. Lars sat opposite him, looking at a holographic datapad. "So," Lars said, breaking the silence. "Japan, you said? We have operatives there. It's a mess. Kazuya's influence is strong in the east. Who is Kazuya? Izuku asked. You keep mentioning him. Lars looked up, surprised. You really don't know? Kazuya Mishima. The head of G Corporation. The man who currently holds the world hostage. Lars tapped his datapad, and a holographic image projected into the air. It was a man in a pristine purple suit. He had slicked back hair, a scar running down his chest, and a glowing red eye that seemed to pierce through the hologram. Danger sense twitched just looking at the image. He looks intense, Izuku murmured. He's a monster, Lars corrected. Not just metaphorically. He possesses the devil gene. A power that turns men into demons. He killed his father, Heihachi Mishima, and threw the world into chaos to draw out his son, Jin Kazama. A family feud? Izuku asked, incredulous. The world is at war because of a family feud, essentially, Lars said bitterly. The Mishima bloodline is cursed. They fight for dominance, and the rest of us are just collateral damage. That's why Yggdrasil exists. We're the only ones trying to stop them. Izuku clenched his fists. It sounded so familiar. Endeavor and Shoto. All for one and one for all. Family legacies that bled out into the world, hurting innocent people. And this? G Corporation? A biotech firm on the surface, Lars explained. But underneath, they're a military superpower. They have an army of those jack units you fought. They have bioengineered soldiers. They have the resources to level countries. And the other side? The Zaibatsu? Leaderless, for now, Lars said. Since Jin went missing. Jin? Kazuya's son. My nephew, technically. Lars rubbed his temples. It's complicated. Jin started a world war to awaken a monster called Azazel, hoping to destroy it and the devil gene with it. He succeeded in killing the monster, but he plunged the world into chaos in the process. Now, he's somewhere out there, and Kazuya is hunting him. If Kazuya finds him and takes his power, it's game over. Izuku absorbed the information. It was overwhelming. A world without pro-heroes. A world where corporations waged open war. A world where power wasn't a quirk regulated by the government, but a raw, unchecked force of nature. The APC slowed down. We're here, Lars said. The doors opened, and Izuku stepped out into a massive underground hangar. It was bustling with activity. Soldiers were repairing mechs, loading supplies, and treating wounded. It reminded him of the UA fortress, but grittier. Less hopeful. A girl with pink hair and robotic wings attached to her back flew over to them. She landed gracefully, her head tilting to the side. Lars! You returned safely. She chirped. Her voice was cheerful, a stark contrast to the grim surroundings. Elisa, Lars smiled, a genuine, warm expression. I told you I'd be back. Status? The perimeter is secure, Elisa said. She turned her eyes toward Izuku. Her pupils dilated like camera shutters. Unknown entity detected. High energy readings. Is this a prisoner? No, Lars said. This is a guest. Deku, this is Elisa Boskanovich. She's the heart of this operation. Hello, Izuku bowed instinctively. I'm Izuku Midoriya, Elisa blinked. Greetings. Your vitals are elevated. And your skeletal structure shows signs of multiple healed fractures. Extreme trauma history detected. Izuku chuckled nervously. Yeah, I get that a lot. Elisa, get him to the mess hall. Get him some food, Lars ordered. I need to debrief with the commanders. Lars turned to leave, but stopped. He looked back at Izuku. Deku. You have power. I saw it. You fight like you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. Izuku met his gaze. That's what heroes do. Well, Lars said grimly. If you plan on staying alive in this world, you're going to need more than just power. You're going to need a reason to fight that's bigger than just saving people. Because in this war, you can't save everyone. Lars walked away. Izuku stood there, the sounds of the rebel bass washing over him. He looked at his hand, scarred and trembling slightly. He was lost. He was alone. But as he looked at Elisa, who was patiently waiting to show him to the food, and at the soldiers working tirelessly to maintain their equipment, he felt a spark of familiarity. They were fighting against impossible odds. They were fighting a villain who seemed invincible. I might not be in Japan, Izuku thought, his grip tightening. I might not be with my friends. But the job hasn't changed. Elisa? Yes, Deku? Is there a way to stop this war? Permanently? Elisa paused. She looked at the giant monitor on the far wall of the hangar. It was broadcasting a global announcement from G Corporation. On the screen, Kazuya Mishima stood on a podium. The weak have no place in this world, Kazuya's voice boomed. The King of Iron Fist Tournament 8 will begin soon. Let those who seek to challenge me step forward. The winner takes the world. The losers die. Izuku watched the screen. He saw the cruelty in Kazuya's eyes. The tournament, Elisa said softly. Kazuya uses it to gather the strongest fighters. He wants to crush all opposition in one fell swoop. Izuku stared at the screen. A tournament. A competition to decide the fate of the world. It was insane. It was barbaric. And it was his only lead. If I win. Izuku whispered. If I stop him. You wish to enter? Elisa asked, her head tilting again. The mortality rate for the King of Iron Fist tournament is 98% for non-Mishima participants. Izuku thought of the Class 1A. He thought of Shigaraki. He thought of the look on that civilian woman's face when the Jack robot raised its fist. He smiled, a tired but determined smile. I like those odds, Izuku said. Tell me where to sign up. The green lightning crackled faintly around his fingers, reflecting in Elisa's steel eyes. The hero had arrived in the Iron Fist universe, and the war was about to change. The subterranean base of the Yggdrasil rebel army was a labyrinth of steel, recycled air, and the constant, rhythmic thrum of heavy machinery. It was a place built for war, stripped of the comforts Izuku Midoriya had grown accustomed to at UA High, yet it possessed a desperate, scrappy sort of hope that felt intimately familiar. It reminded him of the provisional hero bases set up after the collapse of Japanese society. Places where people held the line simply because there was nowhere else to go. Izuku sat on a crate in what passed for a briefing room, his legs swinging slightly, his eyes fixed on the holographic map floating in the center of the table. The map displayed the globe, but it was a globe fractured by red and blue zones. The red of G Corporation spread like a virus, consuming continents. It doesn't make sense, Izuku muttered, his hand coming up to cup his chin in his signature thinking pose. A tournament? To decide a global conflict? In my world, we have the sports festival, but that's for scouting and education. This is determining the fate of nations through single combat. It's illogical. Why would a military superpower risk its dominance on a bracket fight? Lars Alexanderson stood on the other side of the table, his arms crossed over his armored chest. He looked exhausted, the weight of leadership etching deep lines around his eyes. Logic doesn't apply to the Mishimas, Deku, Lars said, his voice gravelly. To Kazuya, and to my father Heihachi before him, power isn't about armies or nukes. Those are just tools. True power, in their twisted philosophy, is the ability to crush your opponent with your own two hands. It's a primal, absolute dominance. If Kazuya wins the King of Iron Fist, he proves his truth to the world. And the world, terrified and awed, will submit. And if he loses? Izuku asked. He won't accept it, Lars admitted dryly. But a loss in the ring shatters the image of invincibility. It breaks the spell of fear he's cast over the populace. If he is beaten publicly, G Corporation's grip weakens. That's when Yggdrasil strikes. Izuku nodded slowly. It was a battle of symbols as much as fists. All Might had been the symbol of peace. Kazuya Mishima was trying to become the symbol of fear. So Izuku said, hopping off the crate. I just have to enter. I have to fight my way to him. And I have to win. It sounds simple when you say it, a soft, synthesized voice chimed in. Izuku turned. Elisa Boskanovich was standing by the doorway. She had removed her combat flight gear, wearing a simpler, purple and pink dress that looked incongruous in the grim military base. Her hands were clasped politely in front of her. The King of Iron Fist tournament attracts the most dangerous combatants in history, Elisa continued. Assassins, genetically modified bioweapons, martial arts masters who can shatter boulders with a tap, and bears. Izuku blinked. Bears? Yes. High-functioning bears, Elisa stated matter-of-factly. Right, Izuku said, his voice cracking slightly. Of course. Bears. He shook his head, refocusing. I've fought sludge monsters, bird-brained bioengineers, and a man who can decay cities with a touch. I think I can handle a bear. Lars pushed off the table. We leave in an hour. The tournament is being held at the Colosseum in Italy. G-Corp has bought the historic site and retrofitted it. It's a spectacle. We'll get you registered under a pseudonym if you want, but your face isn't in any database on this planet, so it might not matter. I'll use my hero name, Izuku said firmly. Deku. Lars paused. You know that sounds like wooden doll in Japanese, right? Useless? Izuku smiled, a ghost of the old, bright smile that had inspired Class 1A. I know. But it means you can do it now. I'm taking it with me. The transport jet was a sleek, black VTOL aircraft, far more advanced than the standard support ships used by the Heroes Public Safety Commission. As they broke through the cloud layer, leaving the dusty ruins of the Middle East behind, Izuku found himself sitting across from Elisa. Lars was in the cockpit, piloting the craft, leaving the two of them alone in the passenger bay. Izuku couldn't help himself. His notebook, which he had miraculously retained in his back pouch during the dimensional shift, though it was battered and singed, was out. He was scribbling furiously. So, Izuku started, his eyes darting over Elisa's form. Your mobility. I saw you flying earlier. The thrusters seem to be integrated into a spinal harness, but the fuel source must be incredible to sustain that kind of output without a massive external tank. Is it a localized fusion battery? And the wings, are they hard-light constructs or high-density plasma? Elisa blinked, her head tilting to the side in that bird-like manner. You are analyzing me. Oh. I'm sorry. Izuku blushed, waving his hands frantically. It's a bad habit. I love support items. And whoever built your gear is a genius. I mean, the integration is seamless. It looks almost like it's part of your body. Elisa stared at him for a long moment. The hum of the jet's engines filled the silence. It is part of my body, she said quietly. Izuku froze. Huh, I am not wearing support items, Deku, Elisa said. She held up her hand. The skin on her forearm split seamlessly, revealing complex, gleaming machinery underneath. A small, rotating cylinder whirred softly. I am an android. Created by Dr. Boskanovich to protect Jean Kazama. I am a machine. Izuku stared at the exposed machinery. For a moment, Elisa felt a flicker of apprehension in her logic processors. Usually, humans reacted with fear, or revulsion, or a greedy curiosity about her weapon capabilities. That, Izuku whispered, leaning closer, his eyes sparkling with stars. Is so cool, Elisa recoiled slightly. Cool? You're an autonomous artificial intelligence with a biomimetic chassis. Izuku practically vibrated with excitement. That means your quirk, or your power, isn't just the weapons, it's your processing speed. You can calculate trajectories in real time, right? You can adjust your density? Do you have sensory receptors in your skin? Yes, Elisa said, bewildered. But I am a machine. I am not human. Izuku's expression softened instantly. The fanboy excitement faded, replaced by a warm, empathetic gentleness. Does it matter? He asked. Elisa looked down at her hands. Lars treats me like a person. But I know my programming. I have directives. Sometimes I worry that my feelings are just errors in the code. Glitches. Izuku looked out the window at the passing clouds. In my world, there are people with quirks that change their bodies completely. Some look like animals, some like objects. Some people have quirks that affect their minds. We ask ourselves all the time, am I just my quirk? Am I just what I was made to do? He turned back to her. I was born without power. I was given my power by someone else. For a long time, I thought I was just a vessel for it. Just a container for one for all. But I learned that it's what you do with the power that makes you who you are. If you care about Lars, if you want to protect people, then your heart is real. Even if it's made of metal. Elisa processed this. Her internal fans whirred quietly. A metal heart, she repeated. She smiled, and it reached her eyes. Thank you, Deku. You are highly illogical, but efficient at emotional stabilization. I'll take that as a compliment, Izuku laughed. We're descending, Lars's voice came over the intercom. Welcome to Italy. Welcome to the Lion's Denver. The Colosseum had been transformed. The ancient stone arches, which had stood for millennia, were now draped in the purple and red banners of G Corporation and the Mishima Zaibatsu. Massive holographic screens floated in the air above the arena, broadcasting loop reels of previous tournaments, brutal knockouts, shattered concrete, and roaring crowds. The area surrounding the Colosseum was a carnival of violence. Tens of thousands of spectators milled about, a chaotic mix of wealthy elites in suits, martial arts enthusiasts in GIs, and cyberpunk street gangs. Food stalls sold everything from Italian gelato to Mishima-style spicy skewers, but underneath the festivity, there was a current of dread. Heavily armed G-Corp soldiers patrolled every corner. Jack 7 units stood like statues at the entrances, their red eyes scanning the crowd. Izuku walked alongside Lars and Elisa, pulling the hood of his tattered costume up. He felt painfully conspicuous. There's so much energy, Izuku whispered, clutching his chest. It wasn't just the noise. It was the key. In his world, people had quirks, biological functions. Here, the fighters radiated a different kind of energy. It was spiritual, physical, and intense. He could feel auras clashing even in the ticket line, and beneath it all, a low, thrumming frequency that made his danger sense itch constantly. The devil gene. It was here. It was everywhere. It felt like a void in the atmosphere. A black hole of malice that was distinct from the chaotic evil of All for One. All for One felt like greed. This felt like pure, concentrated hatred. Keep your head down, Lars warned. We need to get to the registration desk in the Hypogeum, the underground staging area. They navigated through the throngs of people. Izuku saw a man in a jaguar mask posing for photos. He saw a young woman with a giant panda that was wearing a bracelet. Bears, Izuku muttered again, shaking his head. They reached the guarded entrance to the fighter's wing. A massive G-Corp soldier blocked their path. Competitors only, the soldier grunted. And support staff. He's a competitor, Lars said, gesturing to Deku. We're his trainers. The soldier looked down at Izuku. He looked at the torn green bunny-eared hood. He looked at the red sneakers. He snorted. This is the King of Iron Fist, kid. Not a cosplay convention. Go home before you get broken. Izuku looked up. He didn't frown. He didn't get angry. He just projected a tiny fraction of pressure. Not a quirk, just the sheer weight of experience he had gained from fighting in a war. I'm here to register, Izuku said calmly. The soldier flinched. For a split second, he didn't see a small boy. He saw a towering green giant looming over him. He stumbled back, sweat breaking on his brow. All right. Go ahead. They walked past. Nice intimidation, Elisa commented. I didn't do anything, Izuku said innocently. I just asked to enter. The underground registration area was a cavernous hall filled with fighters warming up. The air smelled of sweat, tiger balm, and hot metal. Izuku walked up to the registration desk, a high-tech terminal manned by a bored-looking woman in a G-Corp uniform. Name? She asked, not looking up. Deku. She typed it in. Real name? Izuku Midoriya. Country of origin? Japan. Fighting style? Izuku paused. He looked at his hands. All Might style didn't mean anything here. Shoot style was obscure. Superpower, Izuku said. The woman paused. She looked up, scanning him up and down. She smirked. Another delusional one. Listen, honey, we have cyborgs, ninjas, and demons here. Superpower is a bit vague. Can you break a brick? Izuku looked around. Beside the desk was a digital punching machine, clearly designed to test entrants to weed out the absolute amateurs. The high score on the display read 1450. Do I need to hit that? Izuku asked. Yeah, the woman sighed. You need to score at least 500 to qualify for the prelims. Don't break your hand. Izuku stepped up to the machine. A few fighters nearby stopped to watch, snickering at the small boy in the tattered costume. $5 says he cries, a large man with a mohawk jeered. Izuku took a breath. He didn't want to draw too much attention, but he needed to pass. He needed to calibrate. 1 for all 5%. No, that might be too weak for the sensors here if the baseline is 500. 1 for all 8%. He pulled his arm back. He didn't wind up. He didn't yell smash. He just flicked his finger, a simple Delaware smash motion, but restrained. Thwip. His middle finger snapped against the pad. Boom. The machine didn't just register a score. The pad flew backward, snapping the metal arm holding it. The digital display shattered, sparks showering the desk. The machine groaned and toppled over, smoke pouring from its casing. The entire hall went silent. The man with the mohawk dropped his water bottle. The woman at the desk stared at the smoking wreckage, then slowly turned her eyes to Izuku, her mouth hanging open. Oops, Izuku said, rubbing the back of his head nervously. I think I need to calibrate my control. Is that a pass? The woman swallowed hard. She typed furiously into her terminal. Registration complete. Welcome to the tournament, Mr. Deku. As they walked away toward the waiting area, Lars leaned in. Subtle. Very subtle. I barely touched it. Izuku protested in a whisper. Their tech isn't reinforced for point-blank air pressure. Hey! You! A voice boomed across the hall. Izuku turned to see a tall American man with a towering column of blonde hair that defied gravity even more than All Might's. He wore a red GI and had a grin that was equal parts friendly and maniacal. That was some flick, kid! The man shouted, striding over and slapping Izuku on the back with enough force to knock a normal person over. Izuku didn't budge. Thanks? Izuku said. Name's Paul. Paul Phoenix. The toughest guy in the universe. Paul declared, giving a thumbs up. I saw that air pressure. You got some serious chi control. Or are you an alien? Wait, don't tell me. Aliens are cool. I'm Deku, Izuku said. Deku. Weird name. I like it. Paul leaned in. Watch out for the bears though. They cheat. And the robots. They cheat too. Actually, everyone cheats except me. Wanna spar later? I wanna see if I can punch that air blast of yours. Paul, leave the kid alone. Another man walked up. He was shirtless, with scars on his chest and nunchucks tucked into his belt. He's clearly overwhelmed. Marshall! Look at him! He broke the machine with a finger. Paul pointed. Marshall Law sighed. Ignore him, kid. But he's right. That was impressive. You're going to put a target on your back showing off like that. I'll keep that in mind, Izuku said politely. As Paul and Law walked away, bickering about money and dojos, Izuku felt a strange sense of relief. They're nice, Izuku said. They're idiots, Lars corrected. But they're strong. Paul once fought Kazuya to a draw. Don't underestimate them, Izuku nodded. He scanned the room again. Then he froze. Across the hall, in the shadows, a figure was leaning against a pillar. He wore a hooded cloak, but Izuku could see the boots, studded, metal, heavy. The figure looked up. It wasn't Kazuya. It was a young man with dark hair, brooding eyes, and an aura of profound sadness wrapped in lethal intent. Jin Kazama. Their eyes met. Danger sense didn't buzz. It wept. It wasn't malice directed at Izuku. It was malice directed inward. A self-destructive black hole. Jin stared at Izuku for a second, his eyes narrowing as if he recognized the burden of power in the smaller boy's stance. Then, he turned and vanished into the shadows. That was him, Izuku whispered. Jin, he's here, Lars said, his jaw tightening. The family reunion is complete. High above the arena, in the penthouse suite of the G Corporation tower that overlooked the Coliseum, the air was chilled to near freezing. Kazuya Mishima sat in a leather chair, a glass of scotch in his hand. He wasn't looking at the window. He was looking at a wall of monitors. On the central screen, the footage of Izuku flicking the punching machine played on a loop. Snap. Boom. Snap. Boom. Kazuya watched it with a detached, clinical interest. His left eye, the red one, glowed faintly in the dim light. Report, Kazuya commanded softly. A scientist in a white lab coat trembled as he approached. Sir. We've analyzed the footage from the Jack 7 encounter and the registration desk. The subject, designated Deku, exhibits energy output consistent with high-level key manipulation, but the signature is wrong. Wrong? Kazuya took a sip of his drink. It's not biological in the way the devil gene is. And it's not mechanical. It appears to be a form of energy stockpiling, physical enhancement, and something else. We detected multiple energy signatures within him. It's as if he is a legion of fighters in one body. Kazuya smiled. It was a cruel, thin smile. A legion, Kazuya mused. Interesting. He stood up and walked to the window, looking down at the ants crawling around the Colosseum. The world is full of pests, Kazuya said. Jean. Lars. The UN. They are all boring. Predictable. He looked back at the screen, at the green lightning arcing around Izuku's finger. But this boy, he is a variable. He holds back. I can see it. He strikes with a fraction of his strength because he is afraid of breaking the world. Kazuya clenched his fist. Purple electricity crackled around his hand, shattering the glass he was holding. The scotch dripped onto the expensive carpet, mixing with the blood from a small cut that healed instantly. Put him in Block C, Kazuya ordered. Feed him to Marduk. Let's see what happens when the hero is forced to stop holding back. Let's see if he breaks. Yes, Lord Kazuya. Kazuya turned back to the window, his reflection in the glass superimposed over the burning city below. Welcome to the King of Iron Fist, Deku. Let's see if your justice can survive my reality. Back in the waiting room, a massive screen lit up. The brackets were being announced. The names scrolled by rapidly. Paul Phoenix vs. Kuma 2. Ling Xiaoyu vs. Claudio Serafino. Warang vs. Steve Fox. Izuku watched, his heart pounding. He waited for his name, and then there it was. Block C qualifier. Craig Marduk vs. Deku. Marduk. Lars read the name, and he grimaced. Bad draw. Who is he? Izuku asked. Lars pulled up a file on his datapad. An image of a mountain of a man appeared. He was easily 7 feet tall, wider than a vending machine, and covered in tattoos. He had killed a man in a bar fight. He had been a veiled Tudo champion. He was brutality personified. He's a beast, Lars said. He doesn't fight for points. He fights to hurt. He's going to try to crush you, Deku. Physically. Izuku looked at the picture of Marduk. He thought about muscular. He thought about the Nomu. He adjusted his gloves, pulling them tight. The green lightning sparked briefly in his eyes. He can try, Izuku said. The intercom crackled to life. All fighters to the staging area. The King of Iron Fist tournament begins now. Izuku took a deep breath. The air still tasted of ash and ozone, but now, it also tasted of anticipation. I'm ready, he said. He walked toward the tunnel leading to the arena light, leaving the shadows behind. The roar of the crowd grew louder, a physical wave of sound. Izuku Midoriya stepped into the light. The bell was about to ring. The Colosseum was a cauldron of noise. It was a physical sensation, a wall of sound that vibrated against the sternum and rattled the teeth. The ancient stone structure, which had once hosted gladiators fighting lions and executions of the condemned, had been retrofitted with the highest technology the 21st century had to offer. Massive holographic screens, projected from drones hovering in the stratosphere, wrapped around the upper tiers, displaying the faces of the combatants in high-definition glory. But the smell was the same as it had been 2,000 years ago. It smelled of blood, sweat, and the primal, electric fear of men about to hurt one another. Izuku Midoriya stood in the waiting tunnel of Block C, bouncing lightly on the balls of his red sneakers. He was trying to shake out the tension in his limbs, a habit he'd picked up from All Might. Though looking at his trembling hands, he wasn't sure it was working. This isn't the sports festival, he muttered to himself, closing his eyes. This isn't a sparring match at UA. This is a war zone disguised as a game. Beside him, Elisa Boskanovich adjusted a small holographic interface projecting from her wrist. The pink-haired android looked out of place in the dark, gritty tunnel, her dress pristine against the grime of the walls. Heart rate is 110 beats per minute, Elisa noted, her voice calm and melodic. Cortisol levels are elevated. You are nervous, Deku. Just a little, Izuku admitted, opening his eyes. He pulled the hood of his costume up, the long, bunny-like ears flopping slightly. In my world we have rules. Referees who stop fights before people die. Recovery girl to heal injuries. Here, from what I've seen on the monitors, the refs only step in when someone stops moving. That is an accurate assessment, Elisa said. The King of Iron Fist tournament is a no-holds-barred competition. However, killing is technically against the rules in the qualifiers. It is frowned upon, though accidents happen. Comforting, Izuka sighed. Your opponent is Craig Marduk. Lars Alexanderson's voice came through the calm's piece in Izuka's ear. Lars was up in the spectator box, keeping a low profile while monitoring the situation. Do not let his size fool you. He isn't just a brute. He's a veiled Tudo champion. He knows how to use his weight, and more importantly, he knows how to break limbs once he gets a hold of you. He retired, or was forced to retire, after killing a man in a bar brawl. He's looking for redemption, but he thinks redemption comes from crushing skulls. Right, Izuka said, his expression hardening. Don't get grabbed. Hit hard, move fast. And Deku? Lars added. Don't reveal your full hand. Kazuya is watching. If you show him 100% of your power now, he'll have a countermeasure ready by the finals. Win with technique. Understood. The massive steel gates in front of him began to groan. Gears the size of cars turned, lifting the heavy portcullis. The roar of the crowd surged in volume, washing over him like a tidal wave. Ladies and gentlemen. The announcer's voice boomed, amplified by 1,000 speakers. Welcome to Block C. The qualifiers continue, the crowd screamed. It was a hungry, desperate sound. In a world torn apart by the war between the Mishima Zaibatsu and G Corporation, this tournament was the only thing people had left to care about. It was the spectacle at the end of the world. In the red corner, the announcer roared. He is the unstoppable beast. The veiled Tudo monster. Standing at 7 feet tall and weighing in at over 300 pounds of pure muscle. Craig. Marduk. From the opposite tunnel, a giant emerged. Izuka felt the ground shake before he saw him. Craig Marduk was terrifying. He wore simple fight shorts, his massive, dark-skinned torso glistening with oil and sweat, tribal tattoos curled around his arms and chest like snakes. He walked with a swagger that screamed dominance, raising both arms to the sky as pyrotechnics exploded around him. He grabbed a camera drone that flew too close and crushed it in one hand, laughing as the crowd went wild. And in the blue corner, the announcer continued, his voice dropping a confused octave. A newcomer to the Iron Fist. Fighting out of Japan. The Green Lightning. DKU. Izuka stepped out. The contrast was almost comical. The arena was vast, a circular fighting stage made of reinforced concrete surrounded by a cage. Against the backdrop of the towering Marduk, Izuka looked like a child who had wandered into the wrong room. His costume was tattered, his build was lean and athletic but dwarfed by the sheer mass of his opponent. A ripple of laughter went through the crowd. Is that a kid? Someone shouted. Hey, get him a booster seat. Another yelled. Marduk's gonna eat him. Izuku ignored them. He walked to the center of the ring. The floor was hard, colder than the mats at UA. He looked up. And up. And up. Marduk looked down, a wide, predatory grin splitting his face. He wore a visor over his eyes, but Izuka could feel the dismissal in his gaze. What is this? Marduk rumbled. His voice was deep, like stones grinding together. They running a daycare center now? I thought this was a fight, not a babysitting gig. Izuka took a deep breath. He settled into a stance. Feet shoulder-width apart. Knees bent. Hands raised. I'm your opponent, Izuka said, his voice steady. And I'm not going to make this easy for you. Marduk laughed. It was a booming, genuine laugh. You got guts, kid. I'll give you that. Tell you what. I'll go easy. I'll only break one arm. You can keep the other one to wave goodbye to your mommy. The referee, a stern-looking man in a black and white shirt, stepped between them. He looked at Marduk, then at Izuku, checking for hidden weapons. Finding none, he raised his hand. Ready? Marduk cracked his knuckles. Crack. Crack. Izuku engaged full cowling. Green electricity sparked from his skin, dancing across his cowl. The sudden display of power silenced the immediate front row. The air pressure around Izuku shifted, the dust on the floor swirling away from his feet. Fight! Boom! Marduk didn't wait. For a man of his size, his acceleration was defying physics. He launched himself forward like a cannonball, his massive right fist aiming directly for Izuku's head. It was a haymaker meant to end the fight in 1 second. Danger sense buzzed. Front. Hi! Izuku didn't panic. He had fought muscular. He had fought all might. He knew what big and fast looked like. He ducked. The wind from Marduk's punch ruffled the ears of his hood. The fist passed inches over his head, the force of it creating a vacuum that popped Izuku's ears. He's fast, Izuku analyzed instantly as he slid under the guard. But he overcommits. Izuku pivoted on his left foot, channeling 5% of one for all into his right fist. He aimed for the liver, a classic debilitating spot. Smash! His fist connected with Marduk's side. It felt like punching a truck tire. There was no give. Marduk's muscles were so dense, so layered with conditioning, that Izuku's 5% punch barely registered. Marduk didn't even flinch. He just looked down, his grin widening. That tickled, Marduk said. Before Izuku could retract his arm, Marduk's knee came up. It was a vicious, short-range strike aimed at Izuku's chin. Izuku threw his head back, the knee grazing his nose. He backflipped, using Black Whip for a microsecond to anchor himself to the floor and pull himself out of range, skidding to a halt 10 feet away. Okay, Izuku muttered, wiping a speck of dust from his cheek. 5% isn't enough. His durability is higher than a standard quirk-enhanced villain. He's using chi to reinforce his skin density. Stop running, little rabbit! Marduk roared. He charged again, this time leading with a tackle. He dove, his arms wide, trying to envelop Izuku in a bear hug. If he grabs me, it's over. Izuku jumped. Float. He hung in the air for a second, just out of reach. Marduk crashed into the cage wall where Izuku had been, the metal mesh screaming under the impact. He can fly? Marduk growled, turning around. Cheap trick. It's not a trick, Izuku said, landing lightly. It's variety. Come down here and fight like a man. Marduk pounded his chest. His skin began to flush a deep red. Steam seemed to rise from his shoulders. This was the rage state Lars had warned him about. When a fighter in this world took damage or got angry, their power output spiked. Marduk lunged again. This time, he didn't just punch. He feinted a left hook, then spun into a back fist. It was a complex martial arts combination, executed with the speed of a lightweight. Izuku weaved through the strikes. Left. Right. Duck. Jump. He was analyzing. Marduk's center of gravity is high, but he lowers it when he strikes. He relies on intimidation. He leaves his legs exposed during the wind-up. Why won't you stand still? Marduk shouted, frustration mounting. He stomped the ground, sending a tremor through the concrete that threw Izuku off balance. A shockwave stomp? Just from physical strength, Izuku stumbled. That was the opening Marduk needed. Gotcha! Marduk's hand, the size of a shovel, clamped around Izuku's ankle. The grip was crushing. Izuku felt the bones in his leg creak. Now we play! Marduk yelled. He didn't just pull, he swung. He lifted Izuku like a ragdoll and slammed him into the concrete floor. Wham! The impact knocked the wind out of Izuku. The concrete cracked under his back. Pain exploded in his spine. Mount! Marduk roared. Before Izuku could recover, Marduk was on top of him. The mount position. In MMA, it was the dominant position. When the guy on top weighs 300 pounds and the guy on bottom weighs 150, it's a death sentence. Marduk raised both fists. He looked like a demon. Good night, kid. He brought a fist down. Izuku crossed his arms, reinforcing them with full cowling, 15%. Block. The impact drove Izuku's arms into his own chest. It felt like a hydraulic press. He's going to crush me. I can't move. His legs are pinning my hips. My leverage is gone. Marduk rained down blows. Bam. 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 Each one was heavier than the last. Izuku's guard was holding, but barely. The concrete beneath his head was turning to powder. Is this the hero? Marduk taunted, spittle flying. Is this the green lightning? You're just a speed bump. Izuku gritted his teeth. He could feel the blood in his mouth. Think. I can't blast him off with 100%, or I'll kill him. I can't use Black Whip to pull him off, he's too heavy. I need to disrupt his balance, one for all. Izuku whispered. He waited for the next punch. As Marduk raised his right arm high for a finishing blow, his weight shifted slightly to his left hip. Now, Izuku didn't push up. He pushed down. He channeled power into his back muscles and kicked his legs up, bridging his hips with explosive force. At the same time, he activated FA gene, the kinetic energy he had built up from the repeated impacts on his arms. Get off! The burst of kinetic energy was invisible but violent. It acted like a piston. Marduk was launched upward. The 300-pound giant was thrown 3 feet into the air. Izuku scrambled. He rolled backward, flipping onto his feet. Marduk landed on his back, looking confused. He scrambled up, his face purple with rage. You little rat! I'm not a rat, Izuku panted, wiping blood from his lip. The green lightning flared brighter, changing from a flicker to a steady aura. I'm a student of UA High. I don't care where you're from. Marduk screamed. He crouched. I'm going to tackle you into the dirt, he charged. This was it. The ultimate tackle. Marduk moved faster than he had all fight. He was a runaway train. There was no dodging this. The arena was too small. The crowd screamed. They wanted the splatter. Izuku took a deep breath. Time seemed to slow down. He's coming in low. He expects me to jump away or try to block. If I jump away, he'll just track me. If I block, I lose, so I have to go through. Izuku stepped forward. Manchester. He didn't run away. He ran at Marduk. Just as Marduk opened his arms to wrap him up, Izuku leaped. But he didn't jump over him. He jumped at him. He twisted his body in midair, bringing his right leg up high. The shoot style was developed to accommodate Izuku's leg strength. It was precise. It was sharp. Marduk saw the leg coming. He tried to adjust to grab it. But Izuku used a burst of Black Whip from his left hand, latching onto the floor behind Marduk to pull himself down faster, accelerating the kick beyond natural gravity. Smash! Izuku's iron-soled boot connected with the junction of Marduk's neck and shoulder, the trapezius. It wasn't a lethal blow to the head. It was a tactical strike to the nerve cluster. Crockham. The sound was like a thunderclap. A shockwave ring of dust exploded outward from the impact point. Marduk's eyes rolled back in his head. The sheer kinetic force drove his massive body into the ground. His legs buckled. His face slammed into the concrete. The ground around them shattered, a crater forming under Marduk's chest. Izuku landed gracefully on the other side of the crater, sliding to a stop. He didn't look back. He knew the feeling of a knockout blow. Marduk lay still. The arena went silent. Absolutely silent. Even the holographic screens seemed to flicker in surprise. The giant wasn't moving. The wall of muscle had been breached. Then, slowly, the referee walked over. He looked at Marduk. He lifted the giant's arm. It dropped like a stone. Winner. The referee's voice cracked, then he cleared his throat. Winner! By knockout! DKU! The silence broke. It wasn't a cheer at first. It was a roar of disbelief. Then, the cheers came. Not for the violence, but for the upset. Everyone loves an underdog. DKU! 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 Izuku powered down. The lightning faded. He sagged slightly, the adrenaline crashing. His arms ached from blocking those hammer blows. That was terrifying, he whispered to himself. He walked over to Marduk. The medical bots were already swarming the ring. Marduk groaned, his eyes fluttering open. Hey, Izuku said softly, kneeling beside the giant. Marduk blinked, his vision blurry. He saw the green hood. He flinched. You kicked me, Marduk grunted. You're strong, Izuku said, extending a hand. Really strong. If you had caught me with that tackle, I would have lost. Your technique is amazing. Marduk stared at the hand. In the brutal world of the Iron Fist, nobody helped the loser up. You spat on them. You threw them off a cliff. Marduk slapped the hand away, but there was no real heat in it. He pushed himself up to a sitting position, rubbing his neck. Get out of my face, kid, Marduk grumbled. Before I change my mind and eat you. But as Izuku walked away, Marduk watched him. Monster, Marduk muttered. But he said it with respect. The locker rooms were quiet compared to the arena. The adrenaline was fading, leaving Izuku with the dull throb of bruises forming on his forearms. That was risky, Lars said, handing Izuku a water bottle as he entered the prep room. You let him mount you. Against a guy like Marduk, that's usually suicide. I needed to feel his weight, Izuku explained, uncapping the water and downing half of it in one gulp. I needed to know how dense the fighters here really are. If I had just danced around him, I wouldn't be ready for the later rounds. Now I know. They can take a hit. I don't have to hold back as much as I thought. You still scared the life out of me, Elisa chimed in, spraying a cooling mist on Izuku's arms. But your vitals are stabilizing. Good job, Deku. Thanks, Elisa. You have a break before your next match, Lars said. Go get some air. But stay in the competitor zone. G-Corp security is everywhere, Izuku nodded. He needed to clear his head. The violence of the crowd, the sheer bloodlust, was weighing on him. He grabbed a towel and walked out into the corridor. The competitor zone was a maze of concrete hallways, dimly lit by flickering fluorescent strips. He turned a corner, looking for a quiet spot to write in his notebook. He needed to document Marduk's fighting style, the way he shifted his weight, the raged mechanic. He stopped. At the end of the hallway, leaning against a wall covered in graffiti, was a figure. He wore a hooded leather jacket with a flame design on the pants. Chains hung from his belt. His hair was black and spiked, defying gravity in a way that seemed genetic. It was him. The man from the registration hall, Jin Kazama. Izuku froze. His danger sense was doing that thing again, not buzzing with alarm, but vibrating with a deep, melancholic sorrow. It felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, looking down into a dark ocean. Jin looked up. His eyes were cold, sharp, and utterly devoid of hope. You, Jin said. His voice was quiet, but it carried authority. Jin Kazama, Izuku said, lowering his towel. Jin pushed off the wall and walked toward him. He didn't walk with the swagger of Marduk or the arrogance of Kazuya. He walked like a man marching to his own execution. I watched your fight, Jin said, stopping a few feet away. You hold back. You hesitate to hurt your opponent. I fight to win, Izuku replied. Not to kill, Jin scoffed. It was a bitter sound. A hero. Lars told me about you. The boy from another dimension. The symbol of peace. I'm trying to be, Izuku said. Then you should leave, Jin said abruptly. Go back to your world. Go back to your playfights. Izuku frowned. I can't. Not until I stop Kazuya. Jin's eyes flashed. For a second, a purple glint appeared in his pupils, the devil Jin manifesting. You think you can stop him? Jin stepped closer, looming over Izuku. You have power, yes. But you don't understand the Mishima bloodline. It is a curse. It consumes everything around it. It is fire, and you are made of paper. I've dealt with curses before, Izuku said, standing his ground. He didn't back down. I've dealt with power that destroys the body. I know what it's like to have something inside you that you didn't ask for. Jin paused. He looked at Izuku, really looked at him. He saw the scars on Izuku's arms. The twisted skin where One for All had broken him over and over again. You have a demon too? Jin asked, his voice softer. Not a demon, Izuku said, touching his chest. Ghosts. Predecessors. A legacy. It's heavy. But it doesn't have to be a curse. It depends on how you use it. Jin looked away. He stared at his gloved hand. The hand that had started a world war. You are naive, Jin whispered. Light attracts darkness, Deku. The brighter you shine here, the more Kazuya will want to snuff you out. And the devil loves a challenge. Jin turned his back on Izuku. If you value your life, Jin said over his shoulder, lose your next match. Go home. If you meet me in the ring, Or if you meet my father, your ideals won't save you. Only power matters here. I'll prove you wrong, Izuku called out to his retreating back. I'll save you too, Jean. Jean stopped. He didn't turn around. But his shoulders stiffened. Nobody can save me, Jean said. He walked into the shadows and vanished. Izuku stood alone in the hallway. The silence was heavy. He opened his notebook. His hands were shaking slightly, but he forced them to be steady. He wrote down, Jin Kazama. Power unknown. Style, Mishima Karate. Weakness, loneliness? Izuku closed the book. He thinks he has to do it all alone, Izuku whispered. Just like I used to. He clenched his fist. The green lightning sparked, casting long shadows against the walls. I won't let him die. And I won't let Kazuya win. Izuku turned and walked back toward the locker room. The qualifiers were just the beginning. The real fight was yet to come. Meanwhile, in the VIP box, Kazuya Mishima watched the replay of the Marduk fight. He paused the video at the exact moment of impact. The Manchester smash. He zoomed in on Izuku's leg. He saw the distortion of the air. It's not just strength, Kazuya mused. He alters the air pressure. He creates a vacuum. Sir, a masked G-Corp soldier approached. The bracket for the next round is ready. Deku advances to Block B finals. Who is his opponent? Kazuya asked, swirling his new glass of scotch. Feng Wei, sir. The Kenpo master. Kazuya smiled. Feng Wei, Kazuya chuckled darkly. A man who seeks to become the god of fist. A man who believes power is the only truth. He will not play with the boy like Marduk did. He will try to kill him. Kazuya took a sip of his drink. Let us see if the boy's justice can withstand the dragon's wrath. The screen flickered, showing Feng Wei in his preparation room. The Chinese martial artist was punching a solid stone pillar. With a shout, he struck the stone. It didn't crack. It turned to dust. Feng Wei's eyes were burning with an obsessive, maniacal light. Izuku Midoriya had climbed the wall of muscle. But now, he had to face the fist of God. The waiting room for Block B was quieter than the previous one, but the silence felt heavier. It wasn't the silence of peace. It was the silence of a hell breathed before a scream. Izuku Midoriya sat on a metal bench, his elbows resting on his knees, his hands clasped tight. The adrenaline from the fight with Marduk had faded, replaced by a dull, throbbing ache in his lower back where the giant had slammed him into the concrete. Alisa was running a diagnostic scanner over his spine, her fingers glowing with a soft blue light. Vertebrae L4 and L5 show signs of microfractures, Alisa reported, her voice devoid of alarm but rich in concern. Recovery girl is not here, Deku. If you sustain another impact of that magnitude, your mobility will be compromised by 40%. I know, Izuku whispered. He flexed his hand, watching the scars stretch over his knuckles. But I can't stop. Not yet. Lars Alexanderson paced the small room. The former Tekken Force captain looked more agitated than usual. He kept glancing at the monitor, which displayed the profile of Izuku's next opponent. Feng Wei. Style, Chinese Kenpo, God Fist style. Status, wanted in China for the murder of his master and destruction of multiple dojos. Feng isn't like Marduk, Lars said, stopping in front of Izuku. Marduk is a bully. He fights for ego, for fame. He wants to humiliate you. Feng is a fanatic. Izuku looked up. A fanatic? He believes in one thing, absolute power, Lars explained grimly. He killed his own master because the man scolded him for fighting outside the dojo. He roams the world seeking the Dragon Scrolls, ancient texts that supposedly grant the user the power of a god. He destroys dojos, cripples masters, and crushes anyone in his path just to prove his style is superior. Izuku's eyes hardened. He kills for power? He doesn't just kill, Lars said. He obliterates. He once destroyed a mountain just to test his fist. He doesn't hold back, Deku. He doesn't care about rules or the tournament bracket. If he thinks you're weak, he'll kill you. If he thinks you're strong, he'll try even harder to kill you to prove he's stronger. Izuku stood up, wincing slightly as his back protested. He adjusted his gloves, the green fabric worn but sturdy. He sounds like a villain, Izuku said softly. Like Stain, or Muscular. People who twist their ideals into an excuse for violence. Be careful, Lars warned. His strikes penetrate. He uses internal energy, chi, to rupture organs. Your physical durability won't protect you as much as it did against Marduk. I understand, Izuku said. He pulled his hood up. I'll be ready. The arena had changed. Using the advanced holographic technology of the Mishima Zaibatsu, the concrete floor of the Colosseum had been overlaid with a digital environment. It now resembled an ancient, moonlit temple courtyard, stone dragons coiled around pillars that hadn't been there an hour ago. The floor looked like weathered paving stones, cracked and covered in moss. The crowd was hushed. They knew who Feng Wei was. They knew that when Feng fought, it wasn't a show, it was an execution. Ladies and gentlemen, the announcer's voice was subdued, respectful. The second round of the qualifiers continues. In the red corner, the Kenpo master, the God Fist. Feng Wei walked out. He didn't run. He didn't pose. He wore a traditional red and gold Chinese outfit, his chest bare, revealing muscles that looked like they were carved from mahogany. His hair was tied back in a long, dark braid. His eyes were narrow, slanted, and burned with a terrifying intensity. He carried an aura of utter stillness, like the calm eye of a hurricane. And in the blue corner, the miracle rookie, DKU, Izuku stepped onto the stage. The moonlight cast long shadows across the arena. Feng Wei stopped in the center of the ring. He looked at Izuku. He didn't sneer. He didn't smile. He simply observed. You, Feng said. His voice was calm, deep, and resonated with a strange power. You possess great chi. I can feel it. It is crowded. Izuku blinked. Crowded? Does he sense the vestiges? But it is soft, Feng continued, his lip curling slightly in disgust. It lacks the edge of killing intent. You fight with shackles on your soul. I fight to save people, Izuku replied, taking his stance. That's not a shackle. That's my strength. Feng closed his eyes. He assumed a stance, legs wide, one arm extended forward, the other pulled back to his hip. The air around him seemed to warp. A faint, golden aura began to rise from his skin. Then you will die here, Feng said. And I will step over your corpse to reach the dragon. The referee, looking visibly nervous to be this close to Feng, raised his hand. Fight. There was no explosion of movement this time. Feng exhaled. Humph. He stepped forward. It was a simple step, but it covered 10 feet in an instant. Izuku reacted on instinct. Danger sense flared, a sharp, piercing needle in his brain. Dodge left. Izuku pivoted, using full cowling at 8% to enhance his speed. He sidestepped just as Feng's palm thrust occupied the space where his chest had been. The palm didn't touch anything, but the stone pillar behind Izuku exploded. Boom! Izuku's eyes widened. He didn't touch it. That was just the air pressure from his palm strike. No. That was chi. He projected force. You are fast, Feng noted, turning his head. But you are predictable. Feng swept his leg low. It was the sweep of the iron broom. Izuku jumped. Feng anticipated it. As Izuku rose, Feng rose with him, spinning in the air. His leg came around in a devastating arc, the Iron Mountain kick. Izuku crossed his arms. 15% block. Crack. The impact was heavier than Marduk's punch. It wasn't just heavy, it was sharp. Izuku felt the force bypass his muscles and rattle his skeleton. He was launched sideways, crashing into one of the holographic stone lanterns, which shattered into pixels before reforming. Izuku tumbled, correcting himself with a handstand spring to land on his feet. He gasped, clutching his forearm. His radius felt like it was vibrating. Internal damage, Izuku realized. Lars was right. He hits the inside, not the outside. Feng landed silently. He flowed into the next stance. The shift of the snake. Why do you hesitate? Feng asked, walking slowly toward Izuku. You have power. I see the green lightning. Unleash it. Destroy me. Only in destruction is there truth. You're wrong, Izuku shouted. He charged. Smash! Izuku threw a straight right. Detroit smash. 20%. Feng didn't dodge. He parried. With a motion so fast it blurred, Fang's hand slapped Izuku's wrist, redirecting the massive force of the punch into the ground. The pavement shattered, debris flying everywhere. Fang stepped inside Izuku's guard. Shoulder check. Fang drove his shoulder into Izuku's sternum. Gah! Air left Izuku's lungs. He stumbled back, wheezing. Fang followed up. A palm strike to the chin. A knee to the stomach. A chop to the neck. It was a clinic. A brutal, methodical dismantling. Every time Izuku tried to counter, Fang was already there, redirecting the force and punishing him for it. Is this the best you have? Fang taunted, striking Izuku's temple with the back of his fist. You are unworthy of the Iron Fist. Izuku staggered. His vision swam. He tasted copper. He's too technical. He's been fighting for decades. His martial arts are on a level I've never seen. Ojiro's tail techniques. Kendo's giant fists. Nothing compares to this precision. Izuku retreated, using Black Whip to grab a pillar and swing himself to the far side of the arena. He needed distance. He needed to think. Running again, Fang said, shaking his head. The coward's path. It's called spacing. Izuku yelled back. He wiped blood from his mouth. Okay. Hand-to-hand is a losing game. He's a grandmaster. I'm a brawler by comparison. I need to use what he doesn't have. Range. Versatility. Sixth user. Smoke screen. Izuku released a burst of purple smoke. It filled the temple courtyard, obscuring vision. Tricks, Fang spat. A true warrior needs no eyes. Fang closed his eyes. He listened. He heard the shifting of weight. The crackle of electricity. There. Fang punched blindly into the smoke. A massive shockwave of gold chi cleared a tunnel through the purple fog. But Izuku wasn't there. Float. Izuku was above him. St. Louis smash. Air force. Izuku kicked the air, sending a compressed blade of wind pressure down at Fang. Fang leapt up. He didn't dodge. He punched the wind. Clang. His fist shattered the air pressure bullet. What? Izuku gasped. He punched the air force? Weak! Fang roared. He bent his knees and leaped. He jumped 20 feet into the air, meeting Izuku in the sky. The dragon ascends. Fang performed a spinning uppercut. Izuku barely had time to react. He used Black Whip to bind Fang's arms. 6 tendrils of black energy wrapped around Fang's biceps and torso. Got you! Izuku grunted, trying to throw Fang back down. Fang's eyes glowed red. Hiya! Fang flexed. Snap! 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 The Black Whip tendrils, constructs of pure energy reinforced by one for all, shattered. Fang tore through them like wet paper. He completed the uppercut. His fist connected with Izuku's stomach. Izuku was launched higher, nearly hitting the holographic ceiling of the arena. He plummeted down, crashing onto the stone floor with a sickening thud. The crowd gasped. He broke the energy whips? Paul Phoenix, watching from the stands, dropped his jaw. That kid's black stuff is tough. I saw it hold a car earlier. Fang just ripped it? Fang channels his chi to disrupt other energy, martial law noted grimly. He's the worst matchup for a projectile fighter. Izuku lay on the ground. The world was spinning. His stomach felt like it had been turned inside out. Get up. You have to get up. Stay down, Fang's voice came from above. You are broken. Izuku coughed, spitting out a clot of blood. He pushed himself up on trembling arms. I'm not broken. He stood. His legs shook, but he stood. The green lightning flickered, unstable but persistent. Why? Fang asked. He genuinely seemed confused. You cannot win. Your technique is inferior. Your spirit is weak. Why do you stand? Because... Izuku panted. Because power isn't just about hitting hard. It's about why you hit. Fang frowned. Explain. You. Izuku took a step forward. You killed your master. You destroyed your home. You hurt people just to see if you could. That's not strength. That's just loneliness. Fang's eyes narrowed. The aura around him turned a darker, bloodier red. Loneliness? Fang repeated. The dragon is alone. The tiger is alone. Only sheep gather in herds. Humans aren't tigers, Izuku shouted. We need each other. True strength is being able to lift others up, not just knock them down. Silence! Fong roared. He stomped the ground. The entire arena shook. I will show you the emptiness of your words. I will show you the God Fist. Fong entered a new stance. He lowered his body, his hands glowing with intense, concentrated light. This was his ultimate technique. The one that destroyed mountains. Danger Sense was screaming so loud it was blinding. He's going to kill me. If that hits, I die. Izuku looked at Fong. He saw the malice. But he also saw the emptiness. The desperate, clawing need to be the best because he had nothing else. I have to stop him. Not just to win, but to stop him from being a monster, one for all. Izuku closed his eyes for a microsecond. He felt the vestiges. He felt the first user. He felt all might. You can't match his technique, ninth. So don't try to outfight him. Overpower him. But do it with precision. Gear shift. Izuku opened his eyes. Variable. 20% to 100%. Instant. Fong charged. He moved faster than sound. His fist was a comet of destruction aimed at Izuku's heart. Izuku didn't dodge. He planted his feet. He raised his right hand. Come on! Fong struck. At the moment of impact, Izuku didn't punch back. He caught it. He opened his hand and caught Feng's fist. Boom! The shockwave leveled the holographic temple. The stone floor for 50 feet around them turned to powder. The barrier separating the crowd cracked. But Izuku was still standing. He had caught the God Fist. His glove disintegrated. The skin of his palm tore. The bones in his arm groaned under the pressure of a collapsing building. But he held it. Feng's eyes widened in genuine shock. What? I told you, Izuku gritted out, blood streaming down his forehead. You're alone. But I'm not. Izuku's arm glowed. Not just green, but a rainbow of colors. The power of 8 generations focused into a single point of resistance. You push people away. Izuku screamed. But I pull them in. Izuku tightened his grip on Feng's fist. Now. Sit down. Izuku pulled. He didn't punch Feng. He yanked Feng toward him, destabilizing the master's stance. As Feng stumbled forward, stripped of his momentum, Izuku channeled the stored kinetic energy from Fa Gene. He wound up his left fist. Detroit. Feng tried to block, but his arm was held. He was open. Smayawash. Izuku drove his fist into Feng's chest. But at the last second, he pulled the impact. He didn't want to punch a hole through the man. He wanted to break his will. He released the energy as a shockwave through Feng's body. The impact ripple traveled through Feng's back, exploding the air behind him. Feng Wei gasped. His eyes rolled back. The golden aura shattered like glass. He was lifted off his feet, flying backward across the arena. He skipped across the stones like a stone on water, finally crashing into the far wall of the cage. He slumped down, motionless. Izuku stood in the center of the crater. His right arm was purple, bruised and bleeding. His left arm was smoking. He stood there, chest heaving, waiting for Feng to get up. Feng twitched. He coughed, looking up. He looked at his hands. They were trembling. The dragon. Feng whispered. I saw a dragon behind him. He slumped back down. Unconscious. The silence in the Colosseum was absolute. Then, slowly, the referee walked out from behind a pillar where he had been hiding. He looked at Feng. He looked at the crater. Winner. DKU. The crowd erupted. But this time, it wasn't just noise. It was all. They had seen a master of the Iron Fist, a man who destroyed mountains, stopped by a boy who refused to kill. Izuku fell to his knees. The adrenaline crashed. I did it, he whispered. Elisa was there in an instant, flying over the fence. She sprayed a coagulant on his hand. Critical damage to metacarpals, she said, her voice tight. But you are alive. Yeah, Izuku smiled weakly. I'm alive. High above, in the VIP box, the glass of Kazuya's window was fogged with condensation. Kazuya Mishima stared down at the boy on his knees. He wasn't smiling anymore. He caught Feng's fist, Kazuya said quietly. He stopped the God Fist. Sir, the G-Corp scientist stammered. The energy reading, it spiked to levels we've only seen in you. And Jean. Kazuya turned away from the window. He is no longer a variable, Kazuya said coldly. He is a threat. He walked to his desk and pressed a button. Prepare the next match. And send a message to Jean. What message, sir? Tell him. Kazuya's red eye glowed in the darkness. Tell him that if he doesn't kill the boy in the semifinals, I will. Locker room block B. Izuku sat on the bench, his hand wrapped in heavy bandages. He was exhausted. The door opened. He expected Lars or Elisa. Instead, a large shadow fell over him. He looked up. It was Paul Phoenix. And martial law. Hey kid, Paul said. He wasn't shouting. He looked impressed. Mr. Paul? Izuku asked. You took a beating out there, Law said, handing him a bottle of sports drink. Foam is a nightmare. I fought him once. I couldn't walk for a week. He was strong, Izuku admitted. You're weird kid, Paul said, sitting down next to him. You preach while you fight. You hold back. You talk about friendship and justice. Paul leaned in, his grin returning. But you got a mean right hook. And in my book, that makes you alright. Izuku blinked then smiled. Thanks. But listen, Law said, his face serious. The next rounds, it gets worse. You have the robotic psycho, Brian Fury, in the quarters. And then... Jean. I know, Izuku said. Jean isn't Foam, Paul said quietly. Foam wants to be a god. Jean wants to be nothing. He wants to end everything. Fighting a man who doesn't care if he lives or dies. That's the hardest fight there is. Izuku looked at his bandaged hand. I won't let him end it, Izuku said. I'll save him. Paul and Law exchanged a look. You really are a hero, aren't you? Paul laughed, slapping Izuku on the back again, making him wince. Well then. Good luck, hero. You're gonna need it. As they left, Izuku leaned back against the locker. He closed his eyes. 2 down. 3 to go. Brian Fury. Jean Kazama. Kazuya Mishima. The path was steep. But Izuku Midoriya had never taken the easy road. G-Corp laboratory deep underground. In a dark room lit only by the green glow of vats, a man with a cyborg eye and a manic grin watched the monitor. Brian Fury. He was laughing. A low, raspy, psychotic laugh. He bleeds, Brian whispered, tracing Izuku's face on the screen. He breaks. Oh, this is going to be fun. Brian picked up a heavy Gatling gun with one hand and slung it over his shoulder. I wonder what color his insides are. The screen faded to black as Brian Fury stepped into the elevator, rising toward the arena.